welcome to the great outdoors. M. Adler is here to talk Seattle Storm and all things WNBA from a beautiful location in the center of the universe. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hi there and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. Reminding you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On WBB. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Make sure you subscribe. It's free. It's free. They say the best things in life are free. In this case, it's true. Locked On Women's Basketball. Make us your first listen every day. M. Adler, it was a busy Sunday in the WNBA. Obviously very exciting. Let me start. Minnesota at New York. Did you watch that on national TV yesterday?
No. Did you?
No. Okay. No, I didn't. Surely though, Indiana at Atlanta. Interesting young teams. Did you watch that on national TV yesterday?
Unfortunately, when I turned on my television, I didn't see it.
On national TV. And actually, just technically, because we're going to post this Tuesday, so we're talking about Sunday. We're recording on Monday. Sunday afternoon, into the evening, 6 p.m., Washington at Chicago. Wow, great game. Great game, very exciting. Elena Deladon, Candace Parker. What national TV channel did you watch that on?
Let's see. I think I watched on my national television channel on my the app on my PS4.
Oh no, I was looking at video live. Okay, but surely that got bumped because Dallas and Enrique Dumbuale facing the Las Vegas Aces, first team with a chance to get to 10 wins. Did you watch that on national TV?
Missed it. Must have missed it.
Oh, but Los Angeles at Phoenix, a chance to see the Agwumates take on Skylar Diggins-Smith and Diana Taurasi. Did you watch that on national TV?
A thrilling battle down to the end that I did not see any of.
No, that was not on national TV, but that's all fine, right? Right, that makes sense. Connecticut Sun, a great team, 26-6 last season, 3 of the top 5 in the WNBA in win shares, taking on Brianna Stewart. I mean, my goodness, that must have been on all the national TV channels, right?
It was on my computer monitor, I'll tell you that much.
But that's about it, huh? Very interesting. Yeah, and we covered it in the daily briefing, ably and reliably brought to you by M. Adler, who does such great work on TDB, on the Seattle Storm, and really across the league. Not one on national TV on a day that all 12 WNBA teams were playing. We understand the reasons why, right? We talk about it all the time. The various ways that the league brings revenue in. But on a day that you had all 12 teams playing, and a Sunday at that, how aggravating is it not to see the WNBA on national television?
It's not only just that it's aggravating to not be able to see them on national television, but it's the fact that as the Storm team, I am of course covering the Storm games, and I covered a thrilling game of that. But it's the fact that in doing so, I missed 2 of the other just thrilling games that day, and had no opportunity to watch them at that point.
Right. I mean, it just comes down to, again and again, the league has to balance, and it's an unenviable choice. The league has to balance new revenue coming in with satisfying multiple TV partners and figuring out a way to do that while continuing to grow. But yes, I know for many of us, a Sunday afternoon and evening where you simply couldn't see a lot of these great games happen, very frustrating. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about specifically the Seattle Storm. And you've been doing great work along with Rowan Shaberg, who is in town, of course, in Seattle doing this as well. But you answered some great mailbag questions. I just want to start with one. Just get the name. It's from Howard Megdal asking about Sue Bird and her shooting from two. At the time, it was 1 for 12. Now it's 2 for 16. Can you just take me through why no one should be worried about this?
I would not be worried about that because, look, she shot 1 for 4 yesterday. I guess when you're listening to this, it will be 1 for 4 2 days ago. But you know what she shot from 3? It was 5 of 11. Not a lot of players in WNBA shoot 5 of 11 from 3. She shot decently to open the season, about 35% from 3 on 36 attempts across the 6 or so games she played before she had to go to protocols. But, that's not up to snuff for her. She needs to be around 39-40%. That's where she's been for the past several years. To hear it from herself, her shot wasn't feeling right, felt great coming out of protocols.
What's fascinating to me, and again, that question really answered my concerns, the way you talked about it quite a bit. And I agree with you. I think that balance being a little less equal than it's been, let's say, even in the late veteran stages of Sue Bird's career is perfectly acceptable. But you also talked about in that mailbag, and it's worth everyone should check it out, thenexthoops.com. Just you should be following what we're doing every day and make sure you're subscribing to support the work that's being done by being done by all of our writers, our editors, our photographers across the country, covering women's basketball, north of 100 reported pieces every month. But you talked about Ezi Magbegor as making the leap. Can you elaborate on that? Because I thought that was interesting. I understood that Ezi's production was up, but I really thought you did a great job of getting into why that happened.
Of course. So, Ezi is someone who, the thing that you keep hearing on broadcasts about her is how young she is. She came over from Australia in the WNBA when she was just 20. That was in the bubble. She looked like she belonged, and that was an accomplishment of itself at the age of 20. Last year, she was 21, and she was one of the better global big defenders in the league, incredibly promising. There were concerns. Her finishing around the rim was pretty rough, but that's a thing that for young players, if they have a track record of it before they get to WNBA, that's a thing they can do, and then come back later across 12 years. And certainly that seems to have happened this year, along with a couple other things coming along. Her switchability this year, I don't think there's another big in the entire league who's able to match what she's done, guarding Skylar Diggins-Smith in isolation, guarding Courtney Vanderstreet in isolation, and just blocking them anywhere. She's taken Candace Parker off the dribble to the rim. She blew by Jonquil Jones in a fake handoff just on Sunday. Jonquil Jones had to foul her to prevent just an open layup. She finally hit her first 3 of the season this year after hitting a few of them in small sample last year because she's had larger volume this year. She's been hitting longer jump shots. It's been great to see. Her rotations, her timings, her length and athleticism is genuinely incredible. If I had a Defensive Player of the Year ballot, and if the season ended today, I would have trouble keeping her out of my top 5, maybe even my top 3.
It's really interesting when you talk about that leap and even the ability to stretch the floor and the fact that she made her first 3. It feels like a potential lineup with a front line of Ezi Magbegor, Breanna Stewart, and Gabby Williams would be particularly difficult to match up against in the playoffs. I know you talked about this in the mailbag as well, but take me through. You mentioned you thought Gabby Williams was a capable 12 to 16 minute playoff contributor. I happen to agree with you. I think we're in the minority right now as far as that goes, but tell me, make the case for why that ought to be and why you think Seattle has planned it that way.
So I don't know if Seattle has necessarily planned it that way. I think that they definitely had this possibility in mind. I'm sure they hoped for more. I think when we talk about a 5th option in a lineup, you're not talking about someone who has to be a high-volume floor spacer. You're not talking about someone who has to be able to create. You're not talking about someone who has to be a playmaker or anything of that sort. You're just talking about someone who has to be in the right spots who has to connect the ball well and just has to make sure that the defense isn't playing 5-on-4 advantage. And now that can manifest in a number of different ways. You just have to do whatever you can to make sure that you are some fact that the defense has to respect. Just don't be like Philadelphia 76er defensive specialist Matisse Thybulle did in their second round series this year, when they played the Miami Heat. The Heat would literally just play entirely off of him, and the rest of the offense had no space to operate in. Deborah Williams gets herself involved in the action. She sets good screens, she rolls well, she finishes excellently, and she gets the ball where it needs to go. That's enough to make sure that you're not a total dead space and the rest of the offense isn't playing at a disadvantage, enough to keep your defense on the court. What that just means, though, is that when her defense is needed, she can play for stretches, not the whole game, and certainly not in games where there's just no one important for her to cover.
It's important also that we think about the big picture for Seattle. I want to talk about where they are in the league and get into the week ahead for the Storm as well. But before we do that, I do want to take you through Prize Picks, which has some really interesting ways of playing daily fantasy. And I'm happy to say, including the WNBA, they do a very nice job on WNBA daily fantasy. You pick 2 to 5 players, and there's an over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry. Now, it's just you versus the projected numbers. You're not playing against somebody else. You're playing the house. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is safe and offers fast withdrawals. You can use the award-winning app on both the App Store or Google Play. So mixed sport entries are possible too. Em and I are both passionate believers that there's one basketball. There's NBA, but there's also WNBA, and you can do both. So for a limited time, Prize Picks has an exclusive offer for all of our users. You can get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. But you must use the code NBA, which is, of course, the league, the little brother league of the WNBA. But they play. They, I think, even have finals going on right now. An exclusive offer available to Locked On fans. Sign up and use code NBA. The W is silent. $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Pick entry scores a single point. Make sure you're using Prize Picks for all your daily fantasy leads. So 5-5, 7th overall in the league right now. You know, a real ugly loss followed by a not so ugly but still loss this past weekend. Are we concerned? You know, it's sort of a variation on a conversation you and I have had before. It's 10 games. Well, what does 10 games mean in the vast scheme of things? Not that much. What does it mean in terms of the percentage of a 36-game season? Quite a bit. So where are you on this as far as how what they've done matters?
Much like Seattle Storm head coach Noel Quinn and Seattle Storm de facto co-head coach Sue Bird, I am not concerned. They're 5-5. They just played the first game of their whole season with their actual top of the rotation all healthy. And the last time that they played most of the rotation healthy, they spent 3.5 quarters creaming Chicago before they took their foot off the gas. A wacky ending, but you know, we'll take the first 3.5 quarters for what they were. They haven't played too many teams of huge actual consequence, and in that sense, I just mean in that sense, they got swept in their first sort of home-and-home with the Phoenix Mercury, which essentially has taken them out of Commissioner's Cup contention. Not that that's a huge thing for them, but you know, it's notable. That essentially took them out of Commissioner's Cup contention. They got swept by them in the back-to-back, and they were missing Stewie for part of that. They had a problem with Vegas. Everyone had a problem with Vegas, especially early in the season. So I don't think there's a huge concern, at least in those senses. Certainly, yesterday's loss stings. They were in control for most of the game. They were up 13 at the end of the first half, or for most of the first half, I'd say, even parts of the third quarter. It looked like the Sun just had no answer whatsoever for Seattle's defense and also their offense. Then the Storm bench was just a huge negative as the Sun sort of filtered back in their starters. And you ran into the issue where Brianna Jones and John Paul Jones, they're so good in the low post. They're so good at cutting there, sealing, and just making havoc once they get there, no matter how they get there. The Storm had trouble with them, even for as good as Ezzy and Stewie are. They're not 6'6", like 200-pound defenders that can really make weight out there. And that's where you're hoping that Mercedes Russell is able to come off the minute destruction soon. She's at about 12 minutes right now, but that's the presence that you're looking for as they come back. They play the Dream when you're hearing this, they play the Dream tonight. And that'll be a good game. That should be a matchup more than favorably in the Storm's favor. They should be able to get out to something near 8 or 10 and for a team that is genuinely solid. There are other matchups coming up on the calendar that we're going to see. The Mystics one is going to be fascinating. And there are other ones that, a close to full strength Storm, just able to play players where they want to play them, they're going to get the experience that they haven't had yet, and we'll actually get to see, I think, what the team is made of.
And to your point, this is an Atlanta Dream game Tuesday night, followed by a long road trip, followed by a very long road trip. And Mercedes Russell, I really want to see, correct me if I'm wrong, you think we'll see a lot of Russell on Cheyenne Parker, who has just had a really impressive year so far this year?
I don't think it'll be an especially clear matchup. I mean, Cheyenne Parker isn't someone who really challenges you down low at the post the way that, the league's premier bigs do. Atlanta head coach Tanisha Wright, former Storm player, former Storm legend, really. She does an excellent job of getting players in good positions, and so Cheyenne Parker has gotten a lot of touches really close to the rim. She's gotten a lot of good mid-range opportunities to take people off the bounce. I think Ezzy will be fine handling her, to be honest. It'll be a good matchup for Ezzy. We'll get to see her take stuff off, but, Sadie's is still working back in that minutes restriction, so I don't think it'll be something that really marks the cut.
So I have some breaking news that I'm going to throw into our podcast in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you about the breaking news in your taste buds that you can find with Built Bar. Built Bar has caramel brownie just for a limited time. Very exciting, 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of net carbs. All of Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. There are a million reasons that you should try Built Bar. I mean, I've got one. I've got the only one you need, right? And I'll tell you what it is in just a sec. But go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off here at built.com. And when you do that, who should you say sent you?
Grandma Myrna sent you.
That's very good. So the breaking news that I'm getting here, and this is something I have confirmed, Breanna Stewart is coming to New York. Breanna Stewart is coming to New York on June 19th when the Storm play the Liberty. So by the time Seattle and New York face off on June 19th, what do you think the Seattle Storm record should be for them to continue to not be concerned?
Howard, what is your definition of breaking news?
You don't think Breanna Stewart comes to New York would be a huge story?
I'm wondering what your definition of breaking news is. What is the new part?
You know how CNN just recently said they're going to stop using breaking news all the time? Well, I think we're going to pick up the slack. I didn't say exclusive to the next because anyone who has a WNBA schedule could see it.
Which I think makes it not. I think that picked up the new part of it. Anyway, the Storm, before they get to New York, our favorite city, the greatest city in the world, they play the Dream. Then they travel to Dallas for not a back-to-back, but it's a weekend set. They go up to Minneapolis, and then they go to Lancaster before heading to New York. We've seen the problems the Storm have with the Sun. We've also seen the success the Storm have for 2.5 quarters against the Sun. that game, I think how Sadie's is feeling will play a lot in it. I think how the Sun are doing just in terms of if they fix the chemistry problems that I think were pretty, I actually can say chemistry problems. They're just innate fit problems that even as they were going on their, I think, 18-2 run in the fourth quarter on Sunday, the problems were still there. We'll see how those help or don't help their play. Minnesota should be a clean win. Atlanta, I think, should be a pretty solid win at home. It's the back-to-back, not the back-to-back, it's the weekend set.
2 and 3 days.
Yeah, so in the mailbag page you talked about, I identified the Wings specifically as a poor matchup for Seattle. I also identified the Sun as a good matchup, which for more than half the game was good. So I'm taking that. But the Wings, I think, are still a poor matchup for the Storm. I think keeping that in mind, just given how they're constructed, and I went out into that a little more in the mailbag, but just given how the Wings are constructed, if Seattle splits that series with Dallas, I'd consider that a win. That would put them at 3-2 going into New York over that 5-game set, which would put them at 8-7 on the season.
Seems reasonable. And again, given, and I know this is kind of off the Seattle topic and more of a Dallas topic, but given the difficulty that Seattle has with big bigs, shouldn't Tierra McCowan play a lot during that 2 games in 3 days?
Seattle has problems with big bigs in some sense. They don't have problems with every big big. They didn't necessarily have any more problem with Brittany Griner last year, for example, than any of the league had with Brittany Griner. They pretty much kept her to around her season averages. They've always defended Liz Cambage better than Cambage plays against others in the rest of the league. It's all matchup specific. When we talk about bigs that are somewhat, well, Bree Jones isn't who you think of as like a mobile offensive player, but when we talk about bigs who move well, they can get around the court, they can be a threat to do stuff, not shooting, screening, handoffs from the perimeter, and also sealing and posting up down low, like Bree Jones, like JJ, like those kind of players, then that's going to be an issue for the Storm scheme. Tierra McCowan is a very change of pace player in that wing system. The Wings play with an excellent defensive identity. This year, they played with an excellent defensive identity with their top 5 starting lineup, top 6, depending on who's the first person off the bench, whether it's KT or I guess it's KT at this point, or it's been Izzy the last couple games. So if you're Dallas, you definitely don't want to change that up too much, just because, again, if you're putting McCowan in the starting lineup, if you're trying to play her 20 minutes, you're changing what their core successful identity is. And we saw what happened with them when they went out to Los Angeles. You can't fight fire with fire. You can't try to approximate JJ or Bree Jones, for example, if they're trying to beat the Storm. And you can't try to approximate Liz Cambage when they went out to Los Angeles. You can't try to approximate them with McCowan.
I understand your point. I still maintain Tierra McCowan should play 35 minutes a game. I believe that Greg Bibb believes that as well. That's a great reaction, which we will definitely do.
Over who?
I would plan to play Tierra McCowan 35 minutes a game, and I would plan the rest around it. That's what I would do. But no, I'm definitely going to take that facial expression and use it in the Locked On graphic. There's no question in my mind. That was excellent, and I think understandably so. Listen, I'm also a Han Shu for 35 minutes a game with the Liberty. I'm also on the NBA side. Boban should play 35 to 40 minutes a game. 45 would be okay with me. If we had Boban playing 45 minutes a game, that would all work for me. So anyway, and Boban, of course, plays in a league. And again, it's fascinating to me, right? Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. You have a chance to make as your second listen a league that could, use a little more attention. It's called the NBA, and men play basketball there. We have something called the Locked On NBA Big Board. Host Raphael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Lee Thulin to give fans an in-depth look at the NBA Draft. The NBA Draft is, in many ways, the NBA Finals for the city where you are standing right now, Em. It is the highlight of the basketball season on the men's side in Manhattan, wouldn't you say?
Hey, okay, I'm not a Knicks fan. I actively dislike them, but they did make the playoffs a couple years ago. They weren't good, but they made it.
They did. I mean, listen, and banking on Julius Randle long term has really paid off for them. So make sure that you go ahead and listen to Locked On NBA Draft. It's free wherever you get podcasts, just like you listen to us. First day, first morning, every day. Locked On Women's Basketball. M. Adler doing amazing work. Follow M on Twitter. Read everything that M. Adler writes. I am a booster of yours forever. Thank you for taking the time during your lunch break to be doing this here in the wilds of New York City.
Thank you for having me.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.